All right, welcome to the Trumpeters Call Prayer Line. This is a ministry of Eric Newble Ministries. We are so excited to have you. Now, just a couple quick things. So, first of all, in early October, October 11th and 12th, we have an incredible conference coming up, Vision Casters 2024. Our theme this year is Destiny is at your door. Destiny is at your door. Destiny is calling you in this conference. What we want to do is give you exclusive content that will help you understand how to walk through your door of destiny. We want to give you practical application of how you can find destiny's door. All right, so please join us. If you can't join us, we'd love to have you down in Jackson, Tennessee. If you can't do that, if you can't make it down there, you can register and you can register for virtual. We can do this virtually. So the same anointing that you'll see in Jackson, you'll be able to take that into your home. All right. Okay, next one. Uh, Later, a couple weeks after that, we have Judah International Ministries All Nations Worship Conference. Order in the court. Order in the court. So if you can come out to Jackson, Tennessee, and then come out to Mackinac, Illinois. Hey, Sister Ann, good to see you. So you want to come out to Jackson, Tennessee for Vision Casters, then come on down to Mackinac, Illinois. We will be having our All Nations Worship Conference. And when we say All Nations, we know that our Archbishop Mark, Apostle Eric, Apostle Arthurine, they just came back from Uganda. They are, you talk about international. They put the international in Judah International, Inspiring International. They just got back from Uganda. They have people who are trying to come out here. We have people from all over the country that are trying to come. So please come out if you can. Hey, Elder Jerry, good to see you. All right, and be on the lookout. Inspire you. Let us inspire you. We are going to be coming back with Inspire University. Just talking briefly with the Apostle this past week. Again, he just came back from Uganda, and so trying to catch up with him. But we are going to have Inspire University. So we're going to have some powerful, powerful offerings. So be on the lookout for that. Hey, Elder Diane. All right, so over the last few weeks, Apostle Eric, I should say, the last few months, Apostle Eric has talked about redeeming of lost things. He's talked about the cool of the day. He's talked about be present. And of course, we're talking about the year of open doors. And last time he talked about recovering your power source. So what I'm going to attempt to do today, and hopefully we'll be able to get all of this in here, but I want to kind of highlight each of these points and kind of bring these things together as God has been showing me. Now, this message I'm going to share with you today, and this is very common with every message, but especially this one. This was one of these messages. I'm going to warn you all right now. It is one of these that I am preaching on myself, and you all get to listen. So here we go. All right. Hey, Elder Darrell, good to see you. All right. So a few weeks ago, I was at a conference in Florida. And as I like to do when I'm in Florida, I like to go to the beach. And so I flew in, and then I went to the hotel. I had several meetings that I called into. And then after that, I went out to the beach. Sister Laura, good to see you. So I went to the beach. And here I am on this beautiful beach in Jacksonville, Florida. And it was absolutely beautiful. Here I am on the beach, and you know what? It was very difficult for me to just relax. Hey, God bless you, Travis. How you doing? It was very difficult to relax. Now, I love the beach. I felt the breeze coming off of the ocean into my face. I could feel the water on my feet and the sand. And, I kept looking at my watch, and I was just in the water like, okay, how long have I been in here for? And I kept feeling like I had to be somewhere. I didn't have to be anywhere. My conference didn't start till the next 2 days later. And so I was just like, okay, why can't I relax? And I couldn't enjoy being in the water. The beach is one of my absolute favorite places to be in the entire world, and I could not relax. I couldn't just enjoy being in the water. I kept looking at my watch. I kept feeling like I had to do something. I kept feeling like maybe I'm missing a Zoom call. Okay, what are the kids doing? All these things kept bombarding my mind. And sitting there on the beach in Florida, water right about up to here, waves coming in, and I couldn't relax. And I'm like, God, what is the matter with me? Why can't I just relax in one of my favorite places to be in? I just felt this anxiousness, and I just couldn't sit still. It was almost like I was panicking because I felt like I kept feeling guilty that I was doing this. And I'm like, what is my problem? What is the matter with me? Oxford University Press published an article, and it said this: the Industrial Revolution, which began in the West, led to significant changes in work culture. The drive for productivity and economic growth fostered a culture where being busy became equated with being successful. So the perception is that being busy equates with being successful. This legacy continues today, where work is often prioritized and long hours are common in many Western societies. I had a colleague that was over in Europe, and we were talking, and I was just talking about how busy I was and this and that, and he just kind of looked at me and he just kind of laughed and he shrugged his shoulders, and I was kind of bothered, to be honest with you. I said, like, hey man, what's your problem? Why are you kind of laughing at my plight here? I'm really busy. I got a lot of stuff going on. And he goes, man, you guys work like crazy over in the US. And there's kind of some national pride in me. I was like, yeah, well, that's right. We work hard. And he just looked, he goes, you guys work way too hard. And the way he was saying it, we pride ourselves on we're hard workers, and that's a good thing, of course. But it was almost like he was seeing through this dichotomy, and he was saying, it's not that serious. So another article in the Harvard Business Review says this. The article is titled "Beware a Culture of Busyness," not business. Hey Ken, how you doing? Elder Lafayette, good to see you. It was great to see you this week. All right, so in the Harvard Business Review, there was an article that said, "Beware a culture of busyness." Put simply, busyness has become a status symbol. That's why I got offended with my colleague over in Europe. Busyness has become a status symbol. Research led by a Columbia marketing professor, Sylvia Beliza, shows that people perceive others who are busy and who use products indicating they're busy, like a Bluetooth headset for multitasking, to be important and impressive. So we have a culture of busyness where busyness has become a status symbol. And when we see people who are busy, it seems like they're important and impressive. And when I say things like, I'm so busy, I got this, I got that, and I list out all of these things, and people are like, oh, wow, you really are busy. It's tied to our identity. It makes us feel like we're important, like we're really doing something. However, the American Psychological Association put out a report called Stress in America. Stress in America. And the issue is that the constant push to stay busy and productive can lead to chronic stress and anxiety. This pressure cooker environment is a significant factor contributing to burnout, where individuals feel overwhelmed and unable to cope with their workload. See, when you're constantly busy, now, am I saying being busy is a bad thing? No, of course not. Am I saying that we should shirk our responsibilities? We should quit work, not take care of our kids, don't do stuff? Of course not. I am not saying that. What I am saying is that when busyness leads to busyness in your mind, busyness leads to busyness in your heart and your spirit, and you can't even relax when you are in the middle of the ocean and you are on a beach and you are in a beautiful scene, or when you're with your family, or you're in front of a campfire surrounded by your family and loved ones, and you can't enjoy that, that's when it becomes a problem. Because what happens is when we're on this constant state of anxiety, constant state of overstimulation, what happens is we can feel overwhelmed. That's when, I know I'm too stressed out when, hey, Brother Dennis, how you doing? Where I know I'm too stressed out when I don't even look forward to waking up in the morning. See, I love the mornings. I was telling the young adults the other day, I absolutely love the mornings. I've always been a morning person. And when I have a hard time waking up in the mornings, or I don't want to face the day, it's because what happens is I'm too full of stress, too full of anxiety, too full of all these things. And all of a sudden, I have a busy mind. Not busy in a good way, but it's just constantly going. And there's no place to just relax. See, in the book of Genesis 3:19, Apostle has been talking about redeeming in the cool of the day. We know that what happened was the voice of the Lord God walked in the garden in the cool of the day, and Adam and Eve, they hid themselves. And when they hid themselves, they had eaten of the fruit, right, of the knowledge of good and evil. And what happened is that God placed a curse on man and woman. And in verse 19, part of the curse for man is this: in the sweat of thy face thou shalt eat bread till thou return unto the ground. Well, what do you mean? Well, what God was saying is that you are going to work yourself to death. You are going to be consumed with working. You're going to be consumed with constantly being busy. And what's going to happen is it's going to put you in the ground. That is our human nature. When we are not in the presence of God, when we don't meet God in the cool of the day, what happens is we get extremely anxious. See, we can get so busy, we can get so full of activity that even prayer becomes a thing we have to do. Our worship, our praise, our relationship with God becomes like an appointment. Okay, I got to get this done. Okay, I got to pray at this time. I got to look at the scripture. I got to be on the trumpeter's call. I got to speak here. I got to do, oh my gosh, I'm so busy. And a lot of the things what God had to deal with me about was a lot of the things that, I complain about or say I'm so busy, I prayed for. God said, you prayed for this. You prayed to have your own business. You prayed to be involved with ministry. You prayed to have children and a wonderful family and all of these different things. The activities in and of themselves are not bad things. The problem is that when we are so busy and we can't get into the presence of God, we can't get into the cool of the day, and in the sweat of our face, we start eating bread. What happens is we start working life out of our strength. We start working life out of the knowledge of good and evil, our knowledge of good and evil, not the Holy Spirit's knowledge of good and evil, not according to the word of God. And what happens is in the sweat of our face, we eat bread. You know, God has convicted me so many times. A lot of times when we have conferences, a lot of times when we have ministry events, we have to move the chairs, or I've got to get the technology running. I got to make sure the camera, the sound, all of those kind of things are working. And what happens is I can get really stressed out. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to do this, I got to do that. And we're supposed to be the all nations worship conference where we have all the nations come in and we can bring them into the presence of God. And as we're doing that, I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off. And I'm like, oh, I got to do this. I got to do this. Yeah. Oh, hi, Elder Neil. How are you doing? I'm fine. Okay. I got to. Yeah. What? We are supposed to be serving God. And see, the fruit of the Spirit is love, is joy, and peace. And when we're going by the sweat of our face, what happens is that's our human nature. We're not showing the fruit of the Spirit. We're showing the works of our flesh. We're trying to work this thing. The worst thing you could do is try to work the will of God in and of your own strength. That doesn't work. That does not work. Trust me, I have done it way too many times. When you try to work your business in the sweat of thy face, when you try to, okay, kids, sit down, work out. I'm trying to take the kids to the pool and I'm yelling at them to sit down, be quiet, do that. What? I'm trying to take them to a nice, enjoyable time where we can relax, and I'm stressed out because kids are acting like kids. I got two 8-year-olds that act like 8-year-olds and a 3-year-old. Uh, they're kids. They're supposed to be squirrely. I prayed for them. My wife and I prayed for kids. See, the problem is that we don't know how to be still in the presence of God. So Psalms 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." You see this shirt I am wearing? Be still and know. I wanted to wear something else, and God kept saying, "No, put this shirt on." Why? Because we have to learn how to be still in the presence of God. We have to learn how to be still. We have to learn how to get rid of all the busyness. Listen, I have news for you. All the work that we have to do, all the things we got to get done, it'll be there. It will be there. And those aren't necessarily bad things. I'm not talking about the activity. I'm not talking about our responsibilities. I'm talking about our approach. I'm talking about our spiritual state, our mental state, our emotional state. God says, be still and know that I am God. The next morning, I went out onto that beach and man, I just went, I didn't care what was going on. They had a football team out there, and I love football, but they had a football team out there, and they're working out on the beach. They're doing push-ups in the water and all these kind of things. I just see that word "be still" in the Hebrew means to let go. To let go. It means to be quiet. Be quiet. Be quiet in your spirit. Be quiet in your mind. Be quiet in your emotions. And this last definition was extremely, extremely difficult for me. Be still means to show oneself slack. To show oneself slack. If you're in the workplace and you call somebody a slacker, that's an insult, right? You say, "Oh, you slacker." Implication being you're not doing enough. And that's always a fear of me. Am I doing this? Am I doing that? Am I doing? And the focus is for me is very much doing, and I'm very task oriented. I've been around apostles, so I'm learning how to be more people oriented. But truth be told, when pressure hits, when I'm stressed out, I revert back to task orientation. Now, I remember talking to Apostle about this, and I said, "Apostle, oh my gosh, this definition is to show oneself slack, to show oneself slack." All I could hear is Apostle Eric's voice saying, "Son, you're too hard on yourself. You're too hard on yourself." So we've got to get rid of this Western culture that busyness is a status symbol. See, I work with a lot of companies, and I can tell you that activity does not always equal productivity. Activity does not always equal productivity. Even in the workplace, when managers say, "Well, you got to work 16 hours a day, you got to work weekends, you got to work, 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 work." You know what usually happens? The quality of work usually degrades. And what happens is you end up having, like in software development or in manufacturing, you call them defects. So you have in other words, you do more, you do worse when you work too much, and the quality of your work isn't that good. And what happens is it's extremely demotivating for people because they feel like they have this mound of work and they're constantly trying to work, and you feel like the hamster in the wheel. What God is saying is to be still, to let go, to be quiet, to show oneself slack. And see, the amazing thing about this is that it's only when we're still that be still and know that I am God. See, the amazing thing is, the implication is, if you really want to understand who God is, if we want to get deeper in our relationship with Him, we've got to be still. Because see, the next part of that verse says, "Be still and know that I am God." Why? I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth. Hey, Pastor Blanche, good to see you. What are you getting at? What I'm getting at is that when we get still, we can recognize how big God is. See, when we're busy, what happens is the human brain, when it gets stressed out, all of a sudden cortisol starts going through your body. That's a chemical that goes through your body. And our focus becomes like this. We become very narrow focused, right? Because we have this fight or flight syndrome, which I'll talk about here in a moment. But what happens is our focus becomes like this. And it's hard to see how big God is when you're looking like this. Our focus, our perception becomes like this. The only thing that we can see is what's in front of our face. And we can't see how big God is. Because notice it says this, I will be exalted among the heathen. See, when our focus is like this, we can't see how powerful he is. We can't see that he's El Elyon, the Lord Most High. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth. Whatever is happening in the natural, guess what? If we're still, we can see the God that is over that. Because if you read the top part of Psalms 46, it talks about the heathen rage, the wars were happening, all kind of things, just like today, were happening when this psalm was written. But guess what? The psalmist said, "Be still and know that he is God." Know the God that is going to be exalted above everything. Know the God that is going to be exalted about the things that are stressing us out, about the deadline we have to meet, about all the things that we have to get done. Guess what? God is exalted above all of those things. We just can't experience it if we're too busy in our minds, and we're too busy in our hearts, and we're too busy in our spirits. We can't know this God that is over everything if we're constantly like, "Ugh." We can't. Now, interestingly to know, this was written thousands of years ago, but there's a book called The Art of Impossible by New York Times best-selling author Stephen Kotler. And what he did was he talked to a bunch of neuroscientists, he talked to a bunch of people who really majored in human performance. And what he found was this. He called it the deep now. In other words, be present, like Apostle has been exhorting us. The deep now, or being present, it has a big impact on performance. Most of our fears and most of our anxieties don't exist in the present. They don't exist in the present. What do you mean? Well, he says either we're concerned about horrible things that happened to us long ago and we're remembering them in the present so we don't repeat those mistakes. See, the way our body, the way human nature is, the way our body responds to things, the way our emotions respond to things when we're apart from the presence of God is that if something hurt us physically, emotionally, or we had a bad experience, our our entire being, our emotions, our mind, our body is going to remember that thing and try to avoid it at all costs. That's why people keep recurring, even though things could have happened 20, 30, 40 years ago. That's why people keep reliving it. They keep having flashbacks. It's unresolved because they're like, it was so traumatic, they want to stay away from it. And by the way, at Judah International Ministries, we have a recovery class from shattered to restored based on Ambassador Nanette Larson's material. So if you can make it there, this is the type of things they deal with. But the point is that these things keep playing like a bad movie and we can't get out of it. And we keep reliving it because we're trying to stay away from it. But the thing is that the more we consume and the more we're consumed with things and the more we think on things, as a man thinketh, we become it. And so every reaction we have and every coping mechanism we have is to avoid whatever that traumatic experience is. Now, that's the past. Or we're concerned about scary things that might happen in the future, and we're trying to steer around them in the present. We think about things, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay for my kids' school? My kids are like 8 years old already. Okay, they're only 8, 9 years old. I'm like worried about college, right? We're scared about things in the future. Oh, I've got to get the camera together. I've got to make sure all the equipment's ready. I got to make sure I do these things at work, or I got to do. What happens is we think about the future, and all of a sudden, see what our brains do. See, our brains are a predictive engine, and what happens is when we think of things, our brains are always trying to ask ourselves, how much energy am I going to have to expend? And when we see things that are futuristic, and they're out of our control, and they're bigger than us, that can cause us some anxiety, because we start asking ourselves, how am I going to make this happen? That is the problem. We are trying to make it happen instead of being still and knowing that God, if it's His will and He called it to happen, He is going to try to make it happen. Or I should say, He will bring it to pass. Being confident of this thing, that He who began a good work in us will perform it. See, we're focused on our performance. We have to allow God to be who He is and let Him perform. Now, here's the amazing thing is that when we're present, when we're deeply engaged in the now, if you remove past and future from this equation, what happens is anxiety levels plummet. Right now, if you do any amount of research about anxiety, depression, and things like that, you see it is growing exponentially. Even it was growing even before the pandemic, and it's growing even since the pandemic. What we have to do is get into the present. You hear people say, okay, mindfulness, meditation, all of these things. Why? Because when we remove past and future from this, our anxiety levels plummet. Is it any wonder that Paul said, forget those things which are behind? Forget those things which are behind. And in Matthew chapter 6, Jesus said, take therefore no thought. In other words, that word thought in the Greek means don't be anxious for tomorrow. For tomorrow shall take thought for the things of itself. What Jesus is telling us is what scientists and other people have been trying to say forever. Jesus has been telling us for thousands of years. Be present. Be still. Focus on me right now. Focus on the now. Focus on me. That's what he's saying. Science is just figuring this out. God put this in us. God put this in us thousands of years ago. But see, we went away. We didn't go with him in the cool of the day. We chose the knowledge of good and evil. So what happens is we have all this anxiety and depression. And what we've got to do is forget the past. Don't worry about the future. We've got to be present in the now. And what happens? Well, if we remove these events from the equation, anxiety levels plummet, stress hormones are flushed from our system. All these bad toxic chemicals are flushed from our system. What happens? They're replaced by mood boosting chemicals such as dopamine. See, the thing is, the more I study human performance, the more I study human potential, the more I recognize God put mechanisms inside of us. God put mechanisms inside of us. Why? So when we do His will, when we're still before Him, when we're constantly seeking His face, what happens is these chemicals, all these toxic chemicals go out, and all of these good chemicals come in. Why? Because He created us that way. We are His workmanship. God created us for Him. We were created to worship Him. And what happens is, since good mood increases uh, our ability to find far-flung links between ideas. So what happens is when we're still, all of a sudden we feel His peace, we feel His joy, we feel His love, and our body starts responding to that because we were created for Him. And when we were created for Him and our body starts responding, all of a sudden we feel love and joy and peace. Creativity starts peaking. Why? Because we are in tune with our Creator. creativity increases because we were made after his image and his likeness. And what happens is, oh, wait a minute. All of a sudden, things that we were stressed about, problems that we've had, ideas start coming to us. That's why creativity spikes as well. See, we're talking about the year of open door, and Jesus said this: in my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. Now, you see this beautiful beach mansion. Of course, this is what I think heaven looks like, right? A mansion on a beach. In my Father's house, there are many mansions. And guess what? He says one house, but they're mansions inside of the house. If you have one mansion, that's incredible, right? But guess what? Jesus says, I've got multitude, an infinite amount of mansions inside of my Father's house. And connecting these mansions are doors. This is the year of open doors. And guess what? He says, I come to prepare a place for you, a place where you can be still. And see, when you're still before God and we're still in his presence, what happens is our minds start opening up. Most of us, we operate on a limited mentality. We're like, oh my gosh, I've got to do this. I only have this much time. I only have this much money. I can only do this much. We operate on a very limited mindset. But see, I'm recognizing, and this is when I look at Apostle Eric and I watch him on the altar for hours. I look at Bishop Mark, he doesn't sleep. He's constantly worshiping the Lord. And I wonder where do they come up with this incredible revelation? Where do they come up with ideas? Like there are many more ways to get a thing done than there are not to. It's because when you're still in the presence of God, you could see his house. And if you could see his house, you could see there are many mansions. And by the way, this word, I go to prepare a place for you, that word place means opportunity. That place, that word place means power. That word place means occasion for acting. Do you not know when we get in the presence of God, if we take our time to get still, we can be way more productive in him, productive in his spirit, productive at work, productive with our kids. What do you mean? Don't you think you need a little bit of peace and joy to be around children? Yes. Because now we're not operating out of our flesh, we're operating out of his spirit. We're operating out of his spirit. And what happens is this: when we operate out of his spirit, see this occasion for acting, that's recovering your power source. See, recovering your power source is simply being still before God because he is our power source. He is the one that causes us to live, move, and have our being. Saints, here's what I'm encouraging you to do. Find your place in God. Find your place in God. See, when you find your place in God, when you find that place where you can be still, when you find that place where it's just you and God, it's like time stands still. It's like all these things, they don't matter. This is where you can recover your power source. This is where you could start seeing how God is redeeming lost things. God could be redeeming stuff right in front of us, and we not notice it because we're too focused on being busy. We're too focused on all the things that are not happening. And we're trying to make it happen out of ourselves. Let me tell you, from somebody that could very easily be a workaholic, it doesn't work. It causes you frustration, the people you work with frustration, your family frustration. Trust me. Be still and know that he is God. God bless you, saints. Thank you very much. Brian, if you're there, go ahead and blow the trumpet.